Humans have conquered the world with tools, fire, language, and intelligence. But deep down, maybe buried in our ancient wiring, there's still that little flicker of primal fear, fear of the dark, of what might be hiding just out of sight. Maybe something slithering silently through the water, making no sound except a faint, chilling rustle against the leaves. It's hard to wrap your head around the idea, but a creature like that, a snake of truly monstrous size, once actually existed. This isn't folklore. This isn't some monster cooked up by Hollywood studios. Titanoboa was real, the largest and arguably most terrifying snake to ever crawl the earth. Welcome to Titanoboa, the real nightmare after the dinosaurs. Just how huge was it? Picture this. It's about 60 million years ago. Earth is basically a wasteland, still reeling from an apocalypse. That giant Chicxulub asteroid had slammed into the planet not that long before hitting with the force of something like 10 billion Hiroshima bombs. The fallout was catastrophic. It's estimated that about 75% of all life on Earth just vanished. The planet fell into this haunting, almost deathly silence. But somewhere else, life still clung on. Not out on the open plains or in the struggling forests, but deep beneath the murky brown waters of ancient sprawling swamps. That place was Sarajan, a region that today lies in northern Colombia, South America. During the Paleocene epoch, Sarajan was a vast, waterlogged ecosystem. Average annual temperatures may have reached as high as 32 to 34 degrees Celsius, or about 89 to 93 degrees Fahrenheit. That's significantly warmer than today's equator. The humidity stayed above 85% all year round. This place became a colossal natural steam room and the cradle of a brand new apex predator, Titanoboa. The story of Titanoboa might have remained buried forever beneath layers of rock and earth, if not for a series of fossil excavations at the Sarajan coal mine in the early 21st century. In 2009, a team of international scientists led by Jason Head from the University of Toronto, Mississauga, and Jonathan Block from the Florida Museum of Natural History made a groundbreaking announcement in the journal Nature. They had uncovered the fossilized remains of 28 gigantic snakes at the Sarajan site. But hang on, how do you figure out how big a snake was from just a few backbones, a few vertebrae? Well, paleontologists are clever folks. They used a pretty neat comparative method. They carefully measured the size and shape of these giant fossil vertebrae and stacked them up against the vertebrae of the biggest snakes alive today, especially South American boas like the green anaconda, Unex murinus, and the big hitters from Asia, the reticulated python, Malaya python reticulatus. There's a known relationship between vertebra size and total body length in snakes. The results were astonishing. Based on these analyses, scientists estimated that Titanoboa sarajonensis could have reached lengths of up to 12.8 meters, that's about 42 feet long. And some later estimates pushed that even further, maybe closer to 15 meters, nearly 50 feet. Take a moment to picture that. It's longer than a standard school bus. If you stood beside it, a fully grown adult around 8 meters tall, 6 feet, would only come up to the middle of this snake's body as it lay on the ground. And length is only part of the story. The thickest part of Titanoboa's body may have been about 1 meter in diameter, over 3 feet wide. Imagine a massive sewer pipe that moves. And the weight, based on size and estimated body density, Titanoboa may have weighed as much as 1,135 kilograms, around 2,500 pounds. That's over a metric ton, heavier than an adult bison, and roughly the same weight as a small car. Titanoboa made today's largest snakes like the green anaconda, which maxes out around 9 meters 30 feet, and 250 kilograms, 550 pounds, or Malaya python reticulatus seem almost modest in comparison. So what kind of snake was it? Looking at its bones and its closest living relatives, scientists are pretty sure Titanoboa belonged to the Boidae family. That means it was basically a giant boa, more closely related to today's South American boas than to venomous snakes like cobras or vipers. Key point here: no venom. Its weapon of choice wasn't a toxic bite. It was pure, terrifying, overwhelming muscle power. The big question is, how could Titanoboa grow so massive, and why don't we see snakes like this today? The answer lies within the superheated tropical forests of the Paleocene. You see, snakes, like most reptiles, are ectothermic. You might have heard the term cold-blooded, but ectothermic is more accurate. It means they can't really regulate their body temperature from the inside like we mammals or birds do. Their body heat, their activity level, their metabolism, it all depends heavily on the temperature of the world around them. For a snake as massive as Titanoboa to survive, the average annual temperature would need to fall between 30 and 34 degrees Celsius, 86 to 93 degrees Fahrenheit. That's significantly warmer than the average temperatures in today's tropical rainforests, which usually hover around 25 to 28 degrees Celsius. The scorching heat of Sarajon wasn't a barrier. It was a cradle. It gave Titanoboa the warmth it needed to maintain a fast enough metabolism to fuel its colossal body, allowing it to grow to sizes the world had never seen before. With its massive size and overwhelming strength, Titanoboa naturally rose to the top of the food chain in the Sarajon swamp ecosystem. Nothing else was big enough, fast enough, or smart enough to challenge it. Its lifestyle was likely similar to that of its modern relative, the green anaconda, but scaled up dramatically. Titanoboa was an ambush predator. Its ectothermic metabolism allowed it to conserve energy while lying in wait, and when prey entered its strike zone, Titanoboa would explode into action with lightning speed. Now, let's circle back to that muscle power for a second. Remember, this snake wasn't just longer than today's giants, it was 4 to 5 times heavier. All that extra bulk was primarily muscle. Based on the size and shape of those fossil vertebrae, scientists ran some sophisticated biomechanical models to estimate just how much squeezing force Titanoboa could generate. And the results were terrifying. Estimates suggest Titanoboa could unleash a crushing pressure of up to 400 pounds per square inch, psi, maybe even more. Let that sink in. 400 psi. That's somewhere between 16 and 40 times stronger than the maximum squeeze measured in today's biggest pythons and anacondas. To put 400 psi into perspective, scientists have compared it to the pressure you'd feel if you had the entire weight of the Brooklyn Bridge resting on your body. Or, maybe even more vividly, imagine the weight of 3M1 Abrams battle tanks, those massive 60 to 70 ton machines pressing down on an area the size of your torso. When Titanoboa wrapped those inescapable coils around its prey, any struggle was absolutely futile. Game over. Once the prey had stopped moving, Titanoboa would begin the process of swallowing it whole. Its highly flexible jaws and kinetic skull allowed it to consume incredibly large animals. The act of swallowing could take hours, but one good meal could sustain Titanoboa for weeks, even months, without the need to hunt again. So, what exactly did Titanoboa eat? Fossil discoveries from the same time and location provide some key clues about its diet. Among the remains are large freshwater fish, including lungfish, which would have made for easy, abundant meals. Then there were the turtles, and not just any turtles. They found fossils of a species called Carbonmes cophranii, literally coal turtle, which was the size of a small dining room table. Its shell was thick, solid, measuring maybe 1.72 meters, about 5 feet 8 inches across. You'd think that'd be safe, right? Probably not. Titanoboa's jaws, backed by that immense constricting power, were likely strong enough and wide enough to crush the shell, or simply swallow these massive turtles whole. Imagine a snake swallowing a coffee table. And it gets better. Living in the same rivers were ancient crocodile relatives known as Dinosaurs. One species found there, Acrontissuchus guajarensis, was a serious predator in its own right, growing up to 6 or 7 meters long. That's roughly 20 to 23 feet. Formidable, yes, but likely still no match for a fully grown Titanoboa. There were probably some epic underwater showdowns, but the smart money would always have been on the snake. In the steamy, waterlogged kingdom it called home, Titanoboa was virtually invincible. Once it reached adulthood, it had no significant natural enemies. It was the undisputed, crownless king of the Paleocene swamps. Titanoboa's reign was long, stretching across millions of years in the suffocating heat and humidity of the Paleocene. But like all dynasties, it eventually came to an end. Its downfall wasn't quick or violent. It wasn't taken out by a bigger predator. There was no sudden asteroid, no mass extinction event this time. Titanoboa died because the Earth cooled down. Remember how its colossal size was completely dependent on that extremely warm Paleocene climate? Well, after that peak heat period, moving into the next geological epoch, the Eocene, the planet began a slow, grinding, long-term cooling trend. Global average temperatures started to drop. This wasn't like flipping a switch. It played out gradually, over millions and millions of years. For Titanoboa, this subtle, creeping change was essentially a slow-motion death sentence. As the average temperatures in its swampy home fell, even by just a few degrees Celsius over millennia, its whole biology started to struggle. Its metabolism couldn't keep pace anymore. It simply wasn't efficient enough to power that enormous body in cooler conditions. Digesting those huge meals became harder, slower. It needed more recovery time, more energy just to exist. Lower temperatures likely hit its reproduction too. Young snakes probably grew more slowly. Cooler conditions might have meant fewer successful hatchlings or lower survival rates for the young. Generation after generation, the Titan began to falter. Its numbers likely dwindled. Its geographic range might have shrunk, retreating into the last remaining pockets of sustainable warmth. Eventually, by the middle of the Eocene, Titanoboa vanished entirely from the fossil record. There was no dramatic event to mark its end, no asteroid, no explosion, just the quiet, relentless shift of the Earth's climate and a giant that could no longer keep up. We know that Titanoboa thrived and reached its monstrous size in the superheated world of the Paleocene, and we know it vanished as the Earth gradually cooled. But today, we're facing a reversal of that ancient trend. The Earth is heating up again, and this time, it's happening at an alarming rate due to human activity. Heat records aren't just being broken, they're being shattered, year after year. We see reports from places like the Amazon where dry season temperatures are hitting a scorching 35 to 38 degrees Celsius, 95-100 degrees F, right in Titanoboa's preferred temperature zone. This leads us to an unavoidable, slightly chilling question. If the Earth effectively becomes a tropical pressure cooker once more, could Titanoboa, or maybe something like it, rise again? In theory, the connection between ambient temperature and the maximum size of cold-blooded snakes is real. As the planet warms up, the physiological limits on how big they can get could potentially expand. In fact, we might be seeing tiny hints of this already. Scientists have watched certain tropical and subtropical snakes, like the invasive Burmese pythons, Python bividatus, down in Florida, or various pit viper species, pushing their ranges northward into areas that used to be too cold for them. Some research even suggests they might be growing slightly larger in these newly warmed areas. But the return of a snake the size of Titanoboa wouldn't be so simple. Titanoboa was the product of millions of years of evolution in a warm, stable environment. The global warming we're seeing today is unfolding much faster than the natural climate cycles of the past. Would modern snakes even have enough time to evolve and adapt to reach such gigantic proportions? And perhaps the most critical difference of all, the presence of humans. Compared to a one-ton snake, humans may seem physically fragile. We don't have crushing coils. We can't unhinge our jaws to swallow prey whole. But we have other advantages, things that made us the planet's dominant species: intelligence, complex tools, technology, the ability to radically alter our environment. Let's be honest, any truly massive predator, especially a giant snake straight out of nightmares, wouldn't just be observed. It would almost certainly be seen as a threat. And that means it would be hunted, tracked down, probably eliminated. In today's world, the reappearance of a creature like Titanoboa wouldn't just be a scientific curiosity. It wouldn't be allowed to reclaim any ancient throne, not while we're around. One last thought, maybe a little bit romantic, maybe a little bit out there. Could there be a ghost of a chance, however tiny, that Titanoboa, or some giant, undiscovered descendant, still lurks in the truly unexplored corners of our planet? Think about it. Places like the Amazon rainforest estimates suggest over 80% of it remains largely uncharted, truly wild. Every single year, scientists are still documenting hundreds of new species from regions like this, including reptiles, fish, insects never seen before. Could a giant snake be hiding out there? Mainstream science would say, almost certainly impossible. A viable population of animals that big would need a huge territory, a massive, reliable food source. It's incredibly hard to imagine something on that scale existing today without leaving some kind of definitive trace bones, sheds, massive tracks, eyewitness accounts that aren't easily dismissed. And again, there's the climate factor. Even with current warming trends, the average global temperature, the consistency of the heat, still isn't quite back to Paleocene levels. It's probably unlikely that today's world could reliably support a cold-blooded predator that massive, at least. Not yet. Still, the thought lingers, doesn't it? Out there, beyond the roads, beyond the satellites, in the deepest rivers and darkest swamps, nature definitely still holds its secrets. Titanoboa cerrejonensis was never just a giant snake. It was a symbol of adaptation, of raw natural power, and of the constant, relentless change that shapes our planet. It serves as a living, or rather, once living, reminder of the deep connection between life and climate. And now, as our world heats up once again, Titanoboa's ancient tale feels startlingly relevant. It echoes from the distant past as a potent warning about what can happen when the planet's delicate thermal balance gets thrown out of whack. If we're not careful about the changes we're forcing on the climate, who knows what long-dormant ecological possibilities might stir? Maybe not a literal 50-foot snake, but the principle remains. Drastic environmental change can lead to drastic, unpredictable consequences for life on Earth. Our journey into the lost world of Titanoboa, the true giant of the ancient swamps, ends here. Thank you so much for joining us on this trip back through deep time. Goodbye and see you in the next video.